Welcome to the Cisco ACI Interview Prep Series. This video is for seasoned network engineers aiming for high-paying roles in data center networking. Whether you're applying for an ACI design role or operations engineer, these questions will prepare you to impress any interviewer. Let's get started. Are you an experienced network engineer preparing for a Cisco ACI interview? Whether you're going for a role in deployment, migration, or troubleshooting ACI fabrics, this video has you covered. We'll break down real questions asked in interviews and the exact answers hiring managers love to hear. Let's dive in. Let's start with the foundational elements of Cisco ACI. What is the difference between VRF, bridge domain, and EPG? In Cisco ACI, VRF is a Layer 3 routing instance. Think of it like a virtual router per tenant. Bridge domain, BD, operates at Layer 2, managing MAC address learning and flooding behavior. EPG groups endpoints with similar policies, acting as the anchor point for contract application. How does ACI separate policy from forwarding? Traditional networks often tie policy directly to configuration. ACI abstracts this. You define policy once using contracts and filters, and then apply it to EPGs. Forwarding decisions happen independently, making the network more flexible and scalable. What is the role of an application profile in ACI? An application profile is a logical container that holds one or more EPGs. It defines how these EPGs communicate, like web, app, and DB tiers in a 3-tier architecture. This helps organize policy enforcement based on application behavior, not physical topology. How do L3Outs work in ACI? L3Outs provide Layer 3 connectivity to external networks. You configure a logical node profile that maps to leaf switches and interfaces. Protocols like OSPF or BGP are used for dynamic routing. External networks are grouped into external EPGs for policy control using contracts. What are contracts in ACI and how are they applied? Contracts define what traffic is allowed between EPGs. They include subjects, logical grouping of filters, protocols and ports, like TCP/80, actions, permit, deny, log. A consumer EPG requests access from a provider EPG via a contract. What's the difference between preferred group and VZANI? A preferred group allows member EPGs to communicate freely without contracts, ideal for trusted internal traffic. VZANI allows contracts to be applied globally across all EPGs in a VRF, including external ones. It's scalable for larger setups with dynamic policy needs. What is the difference between AEP and AAEP? An AEP, Attachable Entity Profile, maps interface policies to switch interfaces. An AAEP, Access AEP, is a grouping of AEPs used for scalability and to apply policies across multiple interfaces. Think of AAEP as a reusable container that references one or more AEPs. How does ACI handle port channel versus VPC setups? ACI supports both. Use port channel for multiple interfaces on the same leaf. Use VPC when the device is connected to 2 different leaf switches. You define these in interface policy groups and apply them via AAEPs. What is an interface policy group in ACI? It's a bundle of interface settings like speed, CDP, LLDP, port type, and MTU. These groups ensure consistency and simplify switch port configuration in ACI. Once defined, they're mapped via interface selectors and applied to leaf ports using AAEPs. How does fault isolation work in ACI? Cisco ACI uses a health score system to help identify performance and configuration issues. Health scores range from 0 to 100 with real-time fault logging. You can drill into faults and events per tenant, EPG, interface, or leaf to pinpoint the issue instantly. Where do you check for packet drops or endpoint movement in ACI? Go to the Endpoints tab in the APIC GUI or use CLI to track MAC/IP bindings. You'll see endpoint movement, bounce history, and even drop counters. These tools help identify misbehaving hosts or unstable links. What are common reasons for endpoint learning failure in ACI? VLAN mismatch between physical port config and EPG. Improper EPG bindings to interface profiles. Leaf interface misconfiguration or lack of policy application. Always check interface selectors, AAEP bindings, and BD associations to fix endpoint learning issues. How do you migrate from traditional networking to ACI? Start by replicating VLANs into bridge domains and EPGs. Translate ACLs into contracts. Use migration bridges or routed L3Outs during cutover. Run both systems in parallel for testing before full migration. How do you integrate firewalls like Palo Alto or FortiGate with ACI? You can deploy firewalls using service graphs, L4 to L7 integration, policy-based routing, or static routes via L3Outs. External firewalls can inspect traffic between EPGs or to external networks via contracts. What happens if the APIC cluster goes down? The APIC is the control plane. Policies and config are pushed from here. But the leaf spine fabric continues forwarding traffic using existing policies. You lose access to GUI and new config changes, but forwarding is not impacted. Thanks for watching. If you're serious about landing top-tier roles in networking, subscribe now. Up next, SD-WAN interview questions that could bag you your dream job. And follow us on Instagram @TheTechCult for daily tech bites and career tips. See you in the next video.